Hello dear students, and welcome to this series of lectures in botany. And today we will be talking about a very important topic, viruses, a general account. Well, due to the recent pandemic of swine flu or horrible spread of HIV and other viral pathogens, even a common man today appears very interested in viruses. While the knowledge on different aspects of viruses and virology is rapidly increasing, this information is not easily accessible and retrievable. In this lecture, I will be giving you a general overview of the viruses, and while introducing you to this field of virology, a mention will be made of the pioneering microbiologists who have contributed in this field. You will also find subsequently some information about how these viruses are classified and what are the complexities involved in their classification. According to Dobzhansky, a famous evolutionary biologist who says that nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. So a precise account of their origin and evolution would be given in the form of a common conceptual framework for your easy understanding. Then you will also find some information about their structure, how they are structured and how they replicate, and what are the important modes of their transmission, and how they are isolated and purified from different hosts and to different degrees. And finally, I have tried to give you some idea about the contribution of some Nobel Laureates in the field of virology for your inspiration. But the first and important thing that we need to understand is, what is a virus? Virus is an infectious, submicroscopic, filtrable agent, nucleic acid, protein, or both, on the borderline between the living and non-living organisms, which replicate only inside the living hosts and lack the energy-producing metabolism of their own. Now, let's begin with a brief historical note. The discovery of viruses cannot be attributed to a single person, but it is a joint contribution of a team of Dutch, Russian, and German microbiologists. It was the Russian microbiologist Electrophoresis who in 1892 used the filter devised by Charles Chamberlain in 1866 to trap smallest possible bacteria that were supposed to cause the disease in the tobacco plants called as tobacco mosaic disease. It was Bijernich from 1851 to 1932 who deserves the credit of first realizing that the causative agents of tobacco mosaic disease differ considerably from microorganisms. And Stanley in 1935 first crystallized the viruses and proved that viruses have both living and non-living attributes, which opened a debate on their nature, whether they are living or non-living or on the borderline of the two. Bacteriophages, that is the viruses which infect bacteria, were first discovered by a French scientist de Harel in 1917, while Schlesinger in 1933 first determined the chemical composition of a virus. Hershey and Chase in 1952 were the first to demonstrate that the genetic information is carried in the phage DNA and they have to infect the host cells for transmission of this information. The important and pioneering contribution by these microbiologists guided the way forward for the recent advances in the field of virology. So for the classification of viruses concerned, this has been problematic since beginning because of their ultramicroscopic size, lack of proper fossil records, absence of proper knowledge on their origin and evolution, and presence of both living and non-living attributes. However, the important taxonomic criteria that we use for classification of these viruses include the nature of the host, whether it is an animal, a plant, a bacteria, or even a fungus, etc. Then the nucleic acid characteristics, whether it's a DNA, RNA, whether it is single-stranded or double-stranded, whether it is segmented genome or what are the number of segments, and so on. Then the symmetry of the capsid, whether it is helical, it is icosahedral, it is complex, and so on. Then their immunological properties, biochemical properties also are taken into consideration while their classification, and the type of diseases they cause. Now, so far the origin and evolution of viruses is concerned. Evolution of viruses is still an intriguing question, and 3 hypotheses have been put forward to explain their origin and evolution. They include, first, viruses, because of simplicity of their genome, might represent the direct descendants of earlier self-replicating units in the primordial soup, from which the first cells evolved and then co-evolved to give rise to the complex life forms. Second, viruses evolved from free-living organisms that invaded other life forms and gradually lost their function. This is also known as retrogressive theory of evolution. Third, viruses are escaped nucleic acids no longer under the control of their host cells. This is also called as the escape gene theory of viral evolution. While all these theories or hypotheses partly contribute to the understanding of the viral evolution, a unifying concept to explain the same is yet to emerge. However, you must also know that these viruses have a rapid evolutionary potential. They evolve very fast, and the properties that contribute to this rapid evolutionary potential of viruses include, number 1, their extremely small genome size, enormous population sizes, short generation times, and high mutation rates. Well, so far the structure and composition of viruses is concerned. All viruses have 2 basic structural components. The core of nucleic acids, what comprises their genome, and a capsid, that is the shell-like covering around this genome. The 2 together, genome plus capsid, comprise the genocapsid. So far the genome of viruses is concerned, they are too flexible in this and employ all 4 possible types, including single-stranded DNA, double-stranded DNA, single-stranded RNA, or double-stranded RNA. Single-stranded DNA for example, parvoviruses, double-stranded DNA, for example, lambdaphages, single-stranded RNA, as is found in tobacco mosaic virus or Rome mosaic virus, and double-stranded RNA, as in retroviruses. Capsid is a coat of nucleic acids surrounding the genome, which is composed of capsomers, the protein subunits, the number of which, as I told earlier also, is species specific and an important taxonomic criteria. And the important functions that this genome performs in the viruses include, number 1, protection of the viral genome, second, the determining their shapes and sizes, their configuration, and then also the facilitation of attachment and penetration of viruses into the different hosts. Some viruses do have an envelope, lipoproteinaceous covering around the capsid, what are called as enveloped viruses. Some components of the membranes are predominantly derived from their hosts, and as such the composition of the membrane of the viruses resembles the host, which in fact facilitates their penetration into the host easily and at most of the times undetectably. The important functions that this envelope performs in the viruses is, number 1, as I mentioned, prevention from the attack by the host's immune system, because envelopes are acquired from and are therefore similar to the host cell membranes. Second, very important function is facilitation of infecting new cells through membrane fusion of the host cells. Plant viruses are largely single-stranded RNA viruses. Animal viruses do have all 4 possible types of nucleic acid combinations, in different viruses. And there are only 3 examples so far known in viruses where we have DNA as the genetic material. They include Badenow viruses, colimoviruses, and Gemini viruses. Well, viruses can be categorized into different morphological types. While the ultrastructural details of viruses were not very clear after a long time after their discovery, mainly because of the lack of the proper instrumentation and the facilities. However, the techniques like X-ray diffraction, the ultramicroscopy, and the immunodiagnostics, biochemical analyses, and so on have significantly contributed to the understanding of their structural or morphological attributes. Viruses can be broadly classified into 3 morphological types, including icosahedral, helical, and the complex. Icosahedral, or a typical icosahedron, is a polyhedron with 12 vertices in 20 equilateral triangles as faces. The capsomers in the icosahedron viruses are composed of protomers, which may be either pentamers, that means with 5 protein subunits, or hexamers with 6 protein subunits. The best examples of icosahedral viruses include adenoviruses, polioviruses, and canine parvoviruses. Helical viruses are basically the rod-shaped, long, hollow cylinders with linear array of nucleic acids and protein subunits making up the capsid. In such viruses, for example, tobacco mosaic virus, the protein subunits are arranged in a helical spiral with genome fitted into a groove on the inner portion of the protein. The size of the helical capsid is influenced both by its protomers and the nucleic acids enclosed within the capsid. So for the complex types of viruses are concerned, these are the viruses that are assembled from the parts that are synthesized separately. That means head, tail, or the capsomers come from the different parts, and they do not fit either into the helical or into the icosahedral symmetry, and as such are called as complex in their morphology. And bacteriophages or pox viruses are the best examples of complex viruses. A very important question is, how do viruses replicate? Viral replication differs in different types of viruses, but the broad sequence of events in different types of viruses are almost the same. The 5 principal stages involved in the process of viral replication include adsorption, penetration, synthesis of viral nucleic acids and the proteins, and assembly or maturation of the virion particles, and finally their release. So for the attachment or the adsorption is concerned, this is the first step in the viral replication, which generally takes place through random collision of virion particles with the host cell surfaces, facilitated by the specific receptor proteins on the host cell membrane, or even attached by the ionic interactions. Then the penetration of viruses so far is concerned, it refers to the entry of viruses into the host cell followed by their uncoating. That means the removal of the protein coat surrounding them through the activity of proteolytic enzymes. After their penetration into the host cell, the next step is replication or the multiplication of the viral genome. And different viruses have different strategies for the multiplication of this genome. Once abundant viral genome and the proteins and the other components of their capsids are synthesized within the host cell, the important step is their assembly, which is the 4th important step in their replication. And after they are assembled within the host cell, finally the step is the release. That is, viruses, mature virion particles have to get released from the host cells. Now, transmission of viruses takes place through different agencies or through different vectors. And in case of plant viruses, let me specifically mention over here, there are different modes of transmission of viruses. And it is this mode of transmission of viruses that basically determines their degree of, hostility or whether they are epidemic, they are pandemic, and so on and so forth, as you are aware right now in case of the swine flu. The important modes of transmission of viruses include mechanical transmission, which may be either natural or artificial, then by grafting with odors, or they can be also transmitted via insects and mites, and also through soil inhabiting organisms or even some other plant propagules. With a brief mention of how these viruses are transmitted, I would like to now give you an idea about how these viruses are isolated and purified from their hosts. Isolation and purification is a very important step. And naturally, the techniques that we involve in the process of their isolation and further purification should depend and do necessarily depend upon the properties of viruses themselves. Various techniques that generally are used for the isolation and purification of viruses include centrifugation, which may be differential centrifugation or density gradient centrifugation, then precipitation, denaturation, enzymatic digestion, filtration, electrophoresis, and also chromatography. And after we have isolated our viruses, if we are interested in getting the highly purified viruses, what we have to do is we have to repeat many times the procedure of their isolation. What economic impacts viruses do have? Viruses are economically very important, more often for their negative role than their positive role. Well, over 2,000 kinds of plant diseases are known to be caused by more than 600 different kinds of viruses identified so far, causing a huge damage to a number of horticultural and agricultural crops. And the animal loss due to the different viral diseases has been estimated worldwide of the order of $15 billion annually. Well, losses incurred by the viruses can be estimated through two important ways. One is the biological losses, the damage they cause on the biological organisms or the hosts that they infect. Second is, what ultimately matters in the market, is the economic damage. If we have to measure this impact that viruses have, generally we take three criteria for measuring their impact on the crops or on the other hosts. Number one is the disease incidence. Number second is the disease severity. And number third is the duration of infection. But let me tell you here that viruses do have some positive aspects as well. And the different types of vaccines that we produce against the viral diseases are basically produced from the viruses. Then viruses comprise significant experimental tools for the biotechnology and genetic engineering, and also in understanding the evolutionary biology. And they also are very important. They cause variegated foliage in some important ornamentals and thereby have a very important aesthetic appeal. Finally, let me make a brief mention of the unusual viruses. You might have heard about the viroids or the prions. Viroids are the infectious RNA particles that function independently without any encapsulation or having any envelope or the protein coat surrounding them. Viroids are very different from viruses, and each viroid is solely, as I told you, a small RNA molecule. They are said to cause many plant diseases, mainly through interfering with the messenger RNA processing. And so far, more than a dozen of plant diseases have been known to be caused by viruses. And then prions. Prions, you might be knowing, are the proteinaceous infectious particles. They are only the proteinaceous particles, no DNA, no RNA associated with them. Research indicates that prions are in fact normal proteins that are folded incorrectly. And these prions cause various neurological disorders. Prions are susceptible to protein digesting enzymes, but not to the nucleases. However, in the dynamic and rapidly progressing field of virology, today's discovery is tomorrow's history. And to enthuse your young minds, I would concentrate on 9 great Nobel Laureates whose contribution in the field of virology and working on different aspects of viruses has been duly rewarded with the Nobel Prizes. I will mention them sequentially for the information. In 1946, Stanley was given it for crystallization of viruses, And in 1951, another great scientist, Thiele, got it for vaccines for yellow fever. He worked on this aspect. And in 1954, 3 people shared this prize, namely Enders, Weller, and Robbins, for their great work on cultivation of poliovirus. In 1966, Ross got this prize for viruses and cancer. Then in 1969, 3 scientists shared this prize, including Delbruck, Hershey, and Lauria, for their extremely nice work on mechanisms of viruses infecting living cells. Then in 1975, 3 scientists again shared this prize. They included Baltimore, Temin, and Dolbico, working on a very interesting aspect of interaction between tumor viruses and genetic material of the cell. Dory and Zinkernagel in 1996 were rewarded with this prize for their rewarding work on recognition of virus-infected cells by immune defenses. In 1997, Stanley Prusiner got this prize for discovering and working out the prions, the infectious proteinaceous particles with no DNA or RNA. In 2008, Hillel Zurhausen, for his work on human papillomaviruses causing cervical cancer, shared this prize with Francois and Luke for their wonderful work on human immunodeficiency virus HIV, very horrible virus. Dear students, this was a general account of viruses. And the field of virology is dynamic with n number of dimensions. To talk about other dimensions, we will meet in next lecture. Till then, goodbye.